Welcome back to the Proof of Vision podcast. I had on James, co-founder and CEO at Jambo today. Jambo is basically a Web3 ecosystem designed for users in EMs, emerging markets, so Africa, LATAM, Southeast Asia, and a very different user base compared to most projects. So Jambo provides earning opportunities and also some fiat on and off ramping services as well, among other things. Using the tech that's available in crypto today, including gaming, stable coins, all that stuff to maximize crypto's value for users in emerging markets. And it's the most interesting part is that Jambo has their own phone, right? It costs just $99. That's their means of physically getting into the hands of users in emerging markets. They recently released a JamboPhone 2, which costs still just under $100 and has some competitive specs, even despite the very low price point. So in this episode, we get into that whole process, what it's like to procure and source manufacturing for a phone, which is not something common in crypto at all, really. What it's like putting out actual consumer hardware in the Web3 space, and what Jambo has planned next. They are also launching satellites, so that's pretty interesting. They're expanding into the telecom side of things. So have a listen. It's a good episode. All right. I'm here with James from Jambo. James, do you want to give a quick intro, 2-minute background on yourself for our listeners?
For sure. No, thanks for having me. Super excited. I'm James, the co-founder, CEO of Jambo. Quick personal background is ethnically Chinese, but grew up in Central Africa, 16 years in the Congo. And a lot of this is the reason how I got into crypto and why we started Jambo, like cross-border payments, remittances, banking and banks, 54 countries in the region. You can't even send money cross-border without taking, X amount of days or percentages. If you can even do so, there's no Venmo, WeChat, or super apps like that. But when you realize everything begins and ends with mobile infrastructure in the region, you start realizing how to solve these issues. So Jambo, we're building the largest mobile on-chain infrastructure, starting with our first product, the JamboPhone. We did a bit over 800,000 phones last year to 128 countries, LATAM and Africa being some of our main regions. Super excited to get into it, what our strategy is for onboarding users, Web3 ecosystem, etc.
Fantastic. Okay, so do you want to maybe now move it over to Jambo and give us an introduction on what Jambo is about? It's definitely kind of a unique product in the crypto space. Anything that has, a physical component is unique in crypto, right?
No, I appreciate it. Why does Jambo even matter, right? We're solving the choke point of crypto adoption, which is essentially onboarding and accessibility. So we empower users in EMs, emerging markets, to leapfrog into the digital economy, right? Bridges gaps in financial inclusion and decentralized tools and education. But what does that all mean? Essentially, our product, the JamboPhone, it's a $99 Android-based phone that comes pre-installed with 20 applications, Web3 partners. Now, the Jambo app is only one of the 20, which is your multi-chain wallet and your questing platform. It tells you how to spend time and what to do in the other 19 apps to earn tokens, which then we provide you with on-off ramps around the world. So even if you get Bitcoin, ETH, what are you going to do with it as a 19-year-old in Lagos, Nigeria, or Sao Paulo, Brazil? You would need local currencies. So then that's a lot of how our onboarding off-ramp and on-ramp comes into. Essentially, we call it the phone that pays you. You spend time inside the phone, you earn tokens, you earn money, and you're essentially hitting various on-chain metrics. I would say right now, we're probably one of the largest existing hardware networks within the DePIN space for crypto. We have over 38 million gigabytes of storage availability across our phones and platforms, over 650,000 compute nodes. You can also download the Jambo app without the Jambo phone. So we've created a bit over 9 million wallets from our multi-chain wallet in our app around the world as well, even from those users that don't have our phone. So to round up, what we have done so far is essentially create one of the largest DePIN hardware infrastructures in the space, right? Onboarding users, creating on-chain transactions, spending their time. What we're really excited about going down this year, I'm sure we'll cover it down the line, is we're actually going to connect all of our devices. Because right now you're resistant at the hardware level for censorship, right? You can do what you want. There's PWAs, there's other mobile infrastructures, but you cannot connect to the internet without still working with a traditional telco. Whether you're in Africa, LATAM, still have to work through the telco's coverage. So Jambo, in January, we TGE'd and announced that we're actually launching a network of satellites this year that will connect all of our devices and computer nodes around the world. And you can do even more now in the back end with a phone mining and doing various things.
Yeah, we'll definitely touch on that on that aspect of the network later on. So I feel like I have to ask this with everything going on. Like, are tariffs at all a concern? I mean, you mentioned like emerging markets, like that's the big thing, right? So not really the U.S., but like is that something that you think about at all? I mean, maybe you're one of the only crypto protocols that might have to think about that kind of thing.
No, that's a great question. I think I saw Anatoly, Solana founder Solana, also mentioning tariffs might affect the shipping times or costs of the Seeker phone and other hardware components. I think it's definitely a concern, right, for anyone in any industry with the macro economy at the moment like this, with one person, creating new policies and changing things on the go. So right now, Jambo is still evaluating how this will actually take effect on some of our businesses. And what I mean by that is, on one end, we have our supply chain, right, in Asia, where we have 3 factories producing the phones. That's why we can take orders of hundreds of thousands, with no lag time or wait shipping. The second part is distribution, right? Our team goes to sleep and wakes up thinking of distribution. How do we get our phones out there? And these are not like Web3 channels of online sales like that. These are over 100 companies that we ship to, that we have local distributors and work with people on the ground. Now, when you deal with that, electronics into any country, you're talking customs tax, shipping tax, right? Out the factory, distributors cut. So there's a lot of margin involved in how we are able to keep our phone at $99. Like, I'm sure whoever listening to this right now probably has a phone over $500, whether it's Samsung, whether it's Apple, right? So to keep the cost at 99, we definitely have to keep things like tariffs, et cetera, in mind, and with the regions that we service. So TBD for this answer, but right now definitely concerned at our margins, possibly.
Right. Okay. So yeah, you brought up a couple interesting things there. I think we'll go in a couple of directions. So first off, I'll ask, like, what does a day to day look like, right, in operations, right? You mentioned like you're talking like to factories. You're trying to get physical product distribution, right, like on the ground. So maybe kind of walk me through like what some of those, what the day to day looks like associated with distributing a physical product in the Web3 space.
Great point. I think any founder in Web3 in general has to differentiate this in their day-to-day, because on one side, your day-to-day should be doing your product, right? You make your product as good as possible in order to find distribution, have users want to buy your product, and for us, it's a bit tougher with hardware and software. So we have the supply chain for hardware, distribution for hardware. We have obviously the crypto native aspects of working with different ecosystems on chain. We just finished various conferences, booths, etc. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, as a founder, you have to manage your token and your cap table, which your cap table is now a bunch of retail investors you have no idea of that can buy your token on the open market at various exchanges, after your TGE. And sometimes maybe the amount of product that you sell or what you do at a certain conference or booths will not actually affect your token price. So my day-to-day is, number one, making sure our actual business is running and solving business needs, we're working in various teams, like 5-10 minute meetings. But on the other end is speaking with some of the exchanges we're listed on, our market maker, making sure, plus 2%, -2% depth on various exchanges are good. So users can actually reach our token, get our token when they want to, and we can distribute it to the right hands through the right exchanges. So I think there's 2 very different aspects that most have to balance.
Yeah, for sure. The token complicates things, for sure. Okay, and then the other thing I want to touch on is you brought it up yourself, the Solana Saga, and now they have the Seeker, right? Like, what do you think about those? Are you competing with them? Not competing? Do you think it's interesting?
For sure. Number one is I definitely think it's super interesting, right? Totally set out to disrupt the app store and the duopoly of like Google and Samsung. How can you not be excited by that? Anyone that's built an app or Android or iOS understands how difficult it is, the intricacies. You have any crypto component at all, even if it's not direct, on off ramps, you have so much more hoops to get through. So definitely excited by that. I think there's just some fundamental differences of how, our company is set up, even albeit both being hardware phones. I think the Seeker and Saga is really focused on North America, right? They ship to only the US and Canada. They're more focused on crypto native users. It's their own operating system, not Android. So that means, hey, I don't need to work with all these big distributors. I'm distributing it myself or just working our own operating system. So it's more for Web3 native folks already. I'd say for Jambo, right, we ship to 128 countries. Obviously, EMs are a huge focus for us being where I'm from, and that's the issues that we're trying to solve. Obviously, I want to disrupt the duopoly of Apple, Google, Android as well. But in order to get to the numbers we're trying to get to, which is like 1 million phones last year and definitely more than that this year, is working with these distributors that don't care if you're Web 1 or Web 10. They care that you're Android or iOS based so that they can actually sell the phones to their users. Now, that might be a Trojan horse for us to then get Web3 apps and ecosystems to users and onboard them to the ecosystem. Love the team. We chat with them regularly as well and work on some things. Definitely learned a few things from them as well, like soulbound NFTs and how to add value in those cases even before your phone comes out. Excited to both, push forward the mobile hardware space.
Vertex is a lightning-fast order book DEX offering spot, perpetuals, and money markets with unified cross-margin and a vertically integrated product suite. With Vertex Edge, users can tap into the power of shared cross-chain order book liquidity across Arbitrum, Blast, and Mantle, while earning trading rewards in VRTX, ARB, and MNT. Traders can access over 50 spot and perpetual markets alongside the GMCI 30 and meme indices, with low-fee trading and capital efficiency, all while preserving self-custody and on-chain settlement. Learn more at vertexprotocol.com.
That's great. That's great. Good to hear that you're working together. I've bought both. I've bought both phones from both companies. Okay, that's good to hear.
Amazing.
Okay, so
JamboPhone and the Saga.
Yeah. Or the Seeker didn't come yet, but yeah,
Gotcha.
it's on the way, I guess. Okay, so I think especially recently in the past couple months, the big thing is it's about institutions, right? Like teams building products for institutions, and then you're kind of going in the exact opposite direction, right? So these people are targeting, right, like institutional clients from crypto or trying to find institutions, and you're kind of going, you're targeting people in emerging markets, targeting actual consumers, right? Not large groups of people that are well capitalized, but individuals who maybe don't have much money at all. And that's why they're trying to get involved with Jambo in the first place. So what is it that you see in emerging markets? I guess maybe you can tie it into your background as well. But why did you choose to build in this very specific vertical?
For sure. First of all, I think building infrastructure for institutions is probably one of the most important things, because only with infrastructure can you actually have adoption and these retail can come in, right? Just I think this is a good example. If anyone Asian probably has WeChat and have used some of the investing functions where you can choose to invest some of your coins in there, your tokens, your whichever that is on WeChat that you have. But most of it is going into investments that you don't even know what it is. It might be a soccer stadium in a 4th-tier city in China, but you make 45% on yield. Now, imagine if that was all tokenized, right? Anything in your wallet, say on Phantom Wallet, that's tokenized, and you can invest in various things, stocks, etc. It's essentially opening up your market, total addressable market, to 5.4 billion more internet users, right? If you have that infrastructure. So infrastructure, I think, leads a lot of adoption. But the flip side, without adoption and users actually trying to use that chain, do these transactions, I don't think people will build for infra and build the picks and shovels. So I think it's a bit of both ends. Now with Jambo in these emerging markets for onboarding retail users, we're trying to provide that infra, the mobile infrastructure, because everyone skipped PC using mobile. And that's why the infra says $99 hardware phone. Then inside of it is a lot of our products and software that we can then Trojan horse and get to the hands of users that might not be initially interested in just the use cases of Web3 that we're thinking about. But when you can actually break it down for them and spend time on certain things and provide the info, it makes sense. But that being said, most of the regions that we're in, to be honest, users are already really understand crypto and use it a lot more than I think some would think. Like, especially even our developers in Argentina, deep bear market 2023 still want stable coins and, versus local currency. They understand hyperinflation. They understand how to hedge it using these stable coins, and they understand how to transfer money to their friends, receive it, cash in and out. The average age is like 20 to 25 in most of the regions. I think it's just a completely different dynamic than decades ago, right? Like, even if you look at Jambo, when we fundraised in 2022 and Paradigm led our round, the question wasn't even, James, are you the one to disrupt, Africa, Web3, emerging markets? It was, list me some examples of companies that have succeeded in Web2 even. There's only one publicly listed company on the NASDAQ that's from Africa, and that's Jumia, which is not even African. It's Rocket Internet Brothers, right? It's like an Amazon. So there's just been a big mismatch in opportunity and talent in the last few decades. And I think this might be the years and the decade where there is that actual spark and the growth, where users are at that age where they're experimental enough, understand enough the technology, right? In Brazil, the young people have already been using Pix, which is their local system, using QR codes instead of do payments, which is very similar to some crypto transactions. So they're more open to it as well.
Right. Definitely interesting. Yeah. Okay. So young median age, and then, okay, more tech savvy or have mobile payments in LATAM and Africa. Okay. So I guess, the next thing I'll ask about is, like, when you go to these emerging markets with your team, like, what is the strategy for distribution? So you mentioned like boots on the ground distribution for the phones, but then beyond the phones, there's the whole software component, right? So I guess kind of walk me through like the product life cycle, right? From making the sale of the phone, and then what happens with that user afterwards.
For sure. So there's two different perspectives. One is from our team being in EMs and how to get the product out there, how to localize, do marketing. And the second is what the user might see from their end. So maybe I'll start from our team. It differs region by region, but mostly there are certain internet cafes, let's say, in a region that a lot of the young people spend time after school, after work, to access internet and do things. And if you can onboard that internet cafe owner to then spread the gospel on whatever you are pitching, then you really open up to a lot of users. So I use this example sometimes, but it's not the right narrative at the moment, but like Axie Infinity and YGG, right? Axie Infinity popped off Southeast Asia in 2021. Large part why it was Philippines and not other regions is because YGG is the info provider, essentially creating a Filipino dollar pair with Binance, the guild, onboarding users, word of mouth spreading, how friends can be onboarded. And that's sort of the infra. So for Jambo, we try to do both, where one, we have the software and the IP and we're creating these partnerships inside of our product. But second is we want to create that guild-like aspect where you have friends you can talk to, you are being onboarded into this, and it's not like just a random app, but it's actually something you can, talk to people, touch, feel, etc. So a lot of that is localized. And then WhatsApp groups, Telegram groups, right? WhatsApp isn't really discussed in Web3 as much, but in these EMs, WhatsApp already won the messaging war, and there's entire e-commerce and whole many ecosystems in there. So we do a lot of marketing through that. And I'd say the last part is local KOLs. I don't mean Web3 KOLs that you see on crypto Twitter. It might be one of the largest TikTok guys there. You do a 1 hour live stream session, sell 5,000 phones. So that's another huge part. From the customer's POV, we hope it goes something like this. 19-year-old in Lagos, Nigeria, you could buy a phone for $200-$300, next best option, but instead you spend $99 on JamboPhone because you heard that provides you a job, right? Out of your family of 10, only maybe 2 or 3 work and have a stable income. So this is like an alternative income for you even. Buy the phone by 9 a.m., by maybe 11 a.m., you already set up everything, SIM card, internet, you're already playing around the apps, you've created your Jambo wallet profile, etc. You already earned a few tokens and have tried our swaps and so on and off ramps. Now, if you have other assets, you can transfer it into the Jambo wallet and vice versa. So hopefully that's some of what our users see. But that you see is a completely non-crypto user that I'm talking about. If this is like yourself or something crypto native, you might have bought the JamboPhone on our website. You might have bought 5 of them to airdrop farm and to mine and to, use it in a more Web3 capacity, and will not be used like because of the same context as someone in Nigeria. But that's where we still try to keep the price point at what it is, etc., to serve them.
Right. Yeah. $100 definitely very attractive worldwide. Yeah, into these various emerging markets. Okay. So, um, yeah, I mean, you kind of touched on this earlier, but I kind of want to expand on this. Is like, what are some differences that you see in like emerging markets, right? So, yeah, you brought up like you're going to physical coffee shops, like onboarding, right? The owners of internet cafes. Okay, it's pretty interesting. Mix of like physical and digital kind of marketing mechanisms in these EMs. What are some other differences in like the behaviors of the user base and yeah, and the use cases from
For sure. For
users that
sure.
you onboard in these EMs versus like I imagine it's very different from what most crypto protocols and projects face.
Yep. Yep. No, I was having a chat with this like Chow of Alliance Style the other day, and he was telling me he uses our phone as like a second phone for work, using it as a projector, Android services. Some people have iPhone. Definitely very different from testimonials we hear from our users in other LATAM or other regions. Um, I think like if you look at it, when you're a young crypto user, in emerging markets, like let's go back to the example of Axie Infinity, right? Those that were playing Axie Infinity in 2021 to earn AXS, SLP, etc., are probably not the ones that are trading it on Binance every day. Like the people who are using it and earning those tokens and selling it is probably in Philippines and Southeast Asia, maybe LATAM. I know they were working some guilds there, but they're not the same guys as those that are in the US, China, Turkey, that are in main trading regions and buying the token, selling it, arbitraging, etc. So I think in crypto, there's a big difference between those who are actually your users and you should distribute them your tokens versus those that are more airdrop farmers and actors, which are very necessary to create on-chain transactions, do things in your ecosystem, but definitely not the core user base you set out to go after, that 1,000 users that you make happy. So I think for us in emerging markets, we've set up a lot of our phone and its features for the young people, the users there in mind, right? You look at out of the 20 applications, if you're already deep in crypto, Jambo Wallet is probably not your go-to wallet, right? Like I use Phantom in the Solana ecosystem. I use Coinbase Wallet sometimes for base, when I was buying airdrome finance or whichever. So like there are, much better niche products in certain aspects, right? If you're going for pure security storing, you should probably get a ledger instead of a JamboPhone because that's a cold storage versus hot, various things like this. But at the end of the day, you're not onboarding a next billion users from emerging markets, from LATAM, from Africa, by showing that you have the best security or showing you have the best niche little thing. It's how to get them involved in the entire plan. And I think that's why we try to include it in like an all-in-one ecosystem that can be found inside the phone that can easily access. So I say that's a bit of difference between the user flow.
Right. Yeah, I think it's definitely interesting to chat with someone, focus more like on onboarding users. And then most projects today, it's like the amount of users is kind of irrelevant, right? It's more about like onboarding capital. Yeah, just dollars. Okay, yeah, I thought it was interesting that you brought up Axie Infinity and like guilds and that sort of thing. Is definitely, yeah, it seems like something that hasn't come back yet, but had a lot of interesting things that could be taken, like a lot of strengths for onboarding, especially in EMs. Yeah, even like the mobile first approach. Like you just saw, like Jupiter recently acquired Moonshot, right? And we had what was a recent one? Magic Eden acquiring Slingshot. So you're seeing like more mobile focused acquisitions. So yeah, it seems like people, even it's not the same like niche as you, obviously, right? But that's like trading. But you're trading. There's gaming, right? Like Axie Infinity. Yeah, I think there's definitely more of a mobile focus. Okay, so yeah, I want to peek back more on the operations side a bit. Like, how do you differentiate your team when it comes to like the hardware versus software component, right? So we talked a little bit about like the process of procuring your phones and like marketing in these different regions. So yeah, how do you like separate the team when it comes to building out the physical phone itself, like design, and then the actual software, which I would imagine is more like dynamic, more of an evolving process.
I think I'm cheating a little bit in this part because I have an amazing co-founder It's my sister. We grew up together. Everything is super tight. So like we know how each other function and parts that we should be spending more time on. So we really split up some of the operations parts between, and then our core members, like from Sam, our head of marketing / partnerships, that's always at conferences, superstar, doing a lot. To then like Jet, our product, internal operations, more side. So I feel like you really have these guys that have been with you for years. Because we started in end of 2021. It has been like 3-4 years. And when you go to 3-4 years in crypto, that's like, a lot more years, I feel like, in other industries, because you're just going through so many different crazy cycles at once. So yeah, I'd say the team setup is very important for that. Now, how you actually make decisions, right? We don't do it in a DAO format where people vote based on tokens they have. A lot of it is more centralized from our design team to et cetera. But at the end of the day, when there's new things, for example, right, talking about onboarding and using crypto in general, like one service, let's say we want to provide to our users, is that they can spend the stable coins that they have within our wallet directly in real life. And that 10 years ago, 5 years ago was definitely not possible. Right now, you can easily store your stable coins in an account and then be spending a Visa Visa debit card directly with that and whatever currency, wherever you are in the world, just like how I do. So how do we provide that then to our users to do that? You can use a Cast card, you can use a Reap card, Infinity card. So when things like this, there might be a team member bringing it up at one of our meetings and then pursuing that and then them being a team lead to making something like that happen. So we really encourage like each member from the lowest, like someone that maybe just joined 2 months ago, to like the most senior member. You can always, talk different products, do different that, because we really want to iterate and fail fast.
Right. Yeah, sounds great. Keep it, maybe not keeping it lean, but like, yeah, keeping that, keeping things small in a good way, right? When it comes to collaboration and contribution, all that stuff. Okay, so, yeah, I guess so. You're closing in on like almost 1 million phones sold, like closing in on 10 million wallets. So, like, do you have any interesting stories from any users? Yeah, because I think you have a very distinct user base compared to most of the people that we would interview on this show. So yeah, is there anything that has stood out to you so far? You mentioned, yeah, you've been doing this since the ideation phase, right, in 2021. So yeah, what has stuck out to you so far?
Well, let me, I guess, share this, because this might be a sector that, most other crypto founders wouldn't touch. Like, I didn't expect to do this much in Africa or Latin America, just in general, even when I started Jambo. But like, say last year, we were invited to the Forbes conference in Botswana that dealt directly with the president and setting some regulations in crypto. Like, just for context, out of the 54 countries in Africa, not one has actual SEC like license for Web3 assets or crypto out. Like, Nigeria has 2 provisional licenses they given 2 fintech companies that are deep in it. But none have. The first one to come out with it is Botswana, a country of only 2 million people. For context, where I grew up in Congo, it was like 150 million population. In Nigeria, so even over that, the largest market, like Kenya too, which is our largest markets in Africa. But Botswana actually came out with the first crypto regulations. That means you don't have to work with a neobank that might shut you down in the morning. You can actually get banking services. You can actually speak with the regulators, et cetera. And Jambo, this journey brought me there, where we were presenting on, on-chain mobile network, how to onboard local users. The president was trying to set me up with like Safaricom, Vodacom, local telcos, to then have them bulk purchase Jambo phones to provide them to their users, which would be cheaper phones and utility providing jobs. So it's like a win-win for his campaign as well. So yeah, things like that, I'd say it was very, shocking that we were able to get to doing a presentation in front of hundreds of people and the president sitting in front of you to set regulations for certain countries, to bring that adoption. But I think we all take our part, whether we're in this industry as a founder, investor, or other service providers, that we're pushing it forward. So I'll say that's one. On the user side, it's been the most refreshing when you see like users saying things like, hey, I use this phone every day for XYZ. Like, seeing anyone using your product for a long time for a founder is a huge win. So obviously baked into those amazing reviews are really bad ones as well. Like, hey, I didn't like the amount of airdrop that I got, or hey, I didn't get this, or this shipping time was longer. And those are honestly things we're still trying to flush out, more customer service, more roles, more folks to make things more smooth. But I think it's the ups and downs of starting a company in general. But those testimonials, hearing, users from countries that you would not even expect, like Paraguay, that I haven't even been to, I don't even speak Spanish, to give you reviews and, things like that, or even a local KOL somewhere doing something for you that you didn't expect is nice touches.
Right. Yeah. Good. Two-pronged answer. Yeah. You say you have the users, always interesting to get feedback from them. And then you have, just like one of the caveats of emerging markets, like maybe it's not as developed like physically or even, just like regulatorily, but you can have more access and, talking to these people, helping them, with ideas and form regulations, all that good stuff. Okay, yeah, I think that's great. So I want to ask next is, Jambo definitely, it spans beyond the phone, right? You say like it just starts with the phone, right? So purchasing it is just like just the beginning. So what made you specifically want to go in the hardware realm at all, instead of like just rolling out an app, rolling out the Jambo ecosystem? Did you ever think about maybe like not foregoing the hardware side of things and just going right to Jambo? Or like what made you specifically settle on like, all right, I want to get something physical out there in the hands of people?
Definitely didn't start off with me just wanting to do a physical product, getting in the hands of people. The thought process went something like, hey, let's build these amazing apps, these amazing things to onboard users. But along the way, you realize, what infrastructure do I plug into? Who do I even reach out to get my app installed on? Is anyone actually in these regions? Like, who's doing a lot in crypto in Nigeria or in Brazil? And you realize that you have to create the top of the funnel. Otherwise, there is no funnel. And for us, that was making sure we had the hardware aspect. So luckily, being ethnically Chinese, most hardware manufacturing is in China. But unluckily, my Chinese is just not that good because I never grew up in China. So it took a long time, about like 3 to 6 months, to source the actual 3 factories, to then invest into those factories, have the factory owners then invest into you to believe in it, which is not an easy sell. They don't even think Web 2, they're like Web 0, right? Factory owners, you have to maybe get a drink with them, talk to them, believe in this, and then for them to work with you on a close basis. So, I'd say the ideation of going from software and then to hardware was us not being able to find funnels to be in the regions and to actually plug into. But you see, now then we switched up. It's like, okay, once we did all this work, say over a year of supply chain, getting the phones out, and then another year of getting the phones out to hundreds of thousands of people over 100 countries, what can we plug into this funnel now? And that is why, we have over 200 investors. When we I think finished fundraising with 10 investors taking the round, their Series A in 2022. And the reason we expand 200 something is because we knew each of them will serve a big helping role in, say, introducing this portco or introducing that service provider that can plug into our ecosystem, that can help out in that way. So I'd say a lot of what we're doing today has radically shifted from when I started Jambo, not only in software, hardware part, but just how we even approach things, just because you realize you have to do most things yourself and there's nothing you can really just plug into or hire someone to do.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Definitely going after like maybe untouched group of users, maybe they've never used crypto before. Definitely different from like a DeFi project or something. They're deploying an app, deploying some smart contracts, and then it's like, okay, it's like off to the races. Like people, like it doesn't matter what country they're from, right? They're just like a wallet. So, okay, definitely interesting. So, yeah, okay, we can talk about the investment side of things. So, yeah, you raised from, I think, Paradigm led around. You had Pantera, I think Coinbase in there as well. So, like, how did you pitch those guys? How did you show the vision around emerging markets? Was what Jambo is today, was it fully fleshed out back then? Or like, were you telling them something a little bit different and then things changed along the way? Yeah. So kind of walk me through that process a little bit.
What we did in our Series A, Essentially, so luckily, I was running a fund for 4 years after graduating. So I studied comp sci at NYU, graduated in 2017, which is like the first retail big boom. So luckily, like that immediately sent me into the industry. Ran a fund for 4 years, did from anywhere pre-seed to pre-IPO, SPACs even. So I knew a lot of the GPs at the fund. So honestly, that was a lot easier for me to access them directly. But the pitch, like I said, is something that no one of them even heard of or expected. You know, some haven't even invested in, not even an emerging market or Africa, just like in general in EMs. So a lot of the pitch was helping understand the total addressable market, right? How big it is. A lot of the concepts that are talked about very casually in crypto, from stable coins, you know, to payments, PayFi, you know, UI, UX, and fintech apps, the next million users, they're all found in the global south, right? You look at Tether, you know, cemented itself as number one stable coin, you know, market cap, you know, a lot bigger than the next competitor. And a lot of that is that they are the number one in the global south. Tron as well. You see no branding of Tron as an emerging market chain or anything like that. But most people in Kenya, in Lagos, Nigeria, in Brazil, wherever we are, we see them using Tron USDT as the main payment or sending method to their friends. And why is that? First mover advantage. So, yeah, how a lot of these conversations happen, giving context, understanding, and then maybe after 2-3 months, it's why are you the team to actually do this and how to push it forward. But let's see, Paradigm led our round. We raised 30 at 200 valuation. You know, we had like Delphi Digital, Coinbase Ventures. You know, Coinbase is a big partner of ours. Their wallet is pre-installed inside the phone. You know, Delphi, we just did a pod, you know, et cetera, working with them on the research report side because a lot of institutions look at that too. So how to get, you know, color. So I think a lot of the fundraising part is setting up us for distribution and for eyeballing and things like that in the future.
This episode is brought to you by Pendle. Pendle is a leading protocol in the DeFi yield sector, operating as a permissionless yield trading protocol, facilitating the tokenization and splitting of any yield-bearing assets in DeFi. This allows users to speculate on future yield or earn a fixed rate on their assets. Learn more at pendle.finance.
Right. Yeah, great to add some color there. Okay, so we spent time talking about kind of, a lot of like the origins, the ideation, the phone, like, how to get the phone in the hands of people. So for people who aren't like, it's not like most projects, right? You just click a website and then you're in the app or whatever. Kind of maybe walk the listeners through like what the JamboPhone ecosystem looks like for an ideal user, which may not be like the listener of this podcast, right? So kind of walk them through what someone in Kenya, in Brazil, is doing on the phone like on a day-to-day basis.
100%. So our DAU time for our core user base actually is 5 hours. So I think this was really positive for us to show people actually spend time on the phone like they would a regular phone. Even if they open the phone after they buy it and say, man, I don't like Jambo. I don't want to work with any of these pre-installed partners, and they delete 19 applications and they just leave the Jambo. That's totally fine as well, right? But most of the time what we see is a user coming in, buy the phone, they make their account in the Jambo app, they get their multi-chain wallet, they can store their tokens there, but they're not transferring in their tokens already, right? What they're doing is spending time then in all the other applications and then putting the tokens into the wallet, then possibly transferring it out, cashing out. Now, what other applications? On one end of the spectrum, you have games, right? Anywhere from FPS shooting games, zero lag on a $99 phone even, Matrix Fire, Web3 FPS game like CSGO shooting game. You get to level 5, level 20, you earn Fire tokens that's publicly traded on Bybit, OKX, very liquid. On the Call of the Void type games, easier first person, like fast shooter games, fast casual. Other end of the spectrum, you have wallets of other ecosystem, right? We work with multiple L1s, like even though our own token is Solana based and our payment rails, etc., is partnership Solana and Tether, so everything's that based. But we have wallets of other chains because in case a user wants to also spend time and do other things like Aptos, Injective, they have Ninja Wallet, Petrol Wallet pre-installed. So you have a home to do certain things. And they also incentivize you to do XYZ and you can earn their local native tokens. we're constantly adding new apps, changing apps inside the phone. So, we would love feedback on what apps people want to see as well. Might be new ones like Pump Fund even having their PWA, right, to trade more, because most of crypto is honestly speculation, and a lot of that goes into the form of trading. So for us in EMs especially, we see a lot of that. But yeah, we try to keep it open, end of the spectrum from gaming all the way to wallets and infra providers.
Okay. So, all right. Definitely gaming heavy focus on providing opportunities to earn tokens. Okay. So what kind of trends do you maybe foresee for the crypto users in emerging markets? Like, mobile first crypto users, right? So we've had, in the past, right, 2021, we had gaming, play to earn. And then, okay, right now we have like trading that's gaining more popularity, just trading tokens. What do you think could maybe be next? Not necessarily for crypto as a whole, but yes, for that specific segment of mobile first users.
I genuinely think that more and more money will be put into crypto in general by these local users. Because say you're a 21-year-old, right, in this market in LATAM and Africa, where are you storing your money right now? You're unbanked, probably. Even if you are banked, you probably don't have the craziest amounts of assets to just put in a, treasury generating 4% bond type situation at the bank. What you want is to have access, to have self-sovereignty and programmable money. And a lot of that is cryptocurrency, stable coins, going back again. So a trend that I foresee happening, which I already see from our back end, is more assets being deposited into wallets in the form of crypto, and less like taking out into traditional banks in the markets that we're in. Second, I think, is a lot of fintechs will change their UI UX to include a lot of crypto assets as well, right? So instead of just having, hey, if you hold Solana, you earn 4.5% yield. That's a very simple mechanic that's been around for a while. But if you can say, hey, we're going to tokenize this entire treasury, we're going to tokenize this entire bond that generates 4.5% yield a year that you can invest into, like a money market fund, even on chain. I think that will be interesting, where then users can put their cryptocurrencies and stable coins into other baskets. So I guess the trend would be more into tokens and into crypto, and then more service providers and infra built on it as we see adoption growing, which is, I guess, what we talked about earlier in the pod.
Right. Something that we talked about earlier in the pod was like some of the newer ambitions from Jambo, right? Putting satellites up. Do you want to maybe go and dive in that direction, explain, what you're looking to achieve there, expanding the Jambo network, right? You see, you already have a footprint in the physical, digital realm, and then now you're kind of even expanding beyond that a little bit. So kind of maybe lay the landscape. Give us the lay of the land for some of those developments.
Yes, sir. I think it's just something like simple, honestly. It's like, if you have your phone right now, you're going online, right? Like, you're traveling a lot of crypto conferences. I don't know what you do, but for me, I use certain providers like AirAllo. You pay eSIM, you get whatever country you're in. Very simple. It rides on top of the telco locally. And then I switched over to using like Roam, for example, which is a crypto native one where you can spend tokens to then get access to internet, etc. So Jambo is very simple. We literally produce phones, manufacture phones. Imagine when you buy your iPhone, it's already 24/7 connected to the internet. You don't need to worry about Verizon or another internet plan, right? That will be amazing in Web 2 for just making calls, doing different things, surfing the web, Instagram. But in Web 3, we understand the power of having connectivity and censorship resistance there, because then you can add to a whole network of compute nodes and provide your compute power and get rewarded for it, which is the deep in sector, essentially. So for Jambo, that's what we're doing. We're trying to enable that through launching an orbit of satellites this year. And we're able to do it this year because we TGE, because we've raised for this, because we've set up the necessary connections over the last few years. Because if you don't have the adoption, if you don't have users, then companies might not even want to work with you, provide connectivity. Like, what value add do you bring to the table? So this couldn't have been done years ago by us. We only reached this stage from the numbers that we've achieved. So I guess the lay of the land would be, imagine buying a phone that's connected to the web, and then you can provide all that compute power and your node, essentially hardware, into a bigger crowd and earn tokens and earn money, and even be more self-sufficient in crypto.
That's great. That's great. Okay, so besides that, there's definitely like going in an interesting direction there. You have the whole deep in sector. You have players, trying to use crypto and use these more decentralized means of distribution to provide these more core infrastructure. So I guess it makes sense, right? You're already in the hands of so many people, right? Almost 1 million phones sold, to kind of go in that direction now that you've already established the demand. So besides that, what else do you foresee coming from Jambo this year? Like, what's on the roadmap? Maybe things don't even have to be on the roadmap. Like, what are you thinking about? What kind of directions are you and the team analyzing as things that just could be interesting? Kind of just give me what's on your plate.
All right. So that was probably one of the biggest things we've been planning, the satellite parts. Going into others, maybe lower hanging fruit, easier, is we're opening some physical stores. So regions that we have big adoption, we realize we still want a physical point. And obviously it's not going to just be a cell phone store like Jambo, go and buy a phone. It's going to be, think, in one of the largest malls in Sao Paulo, Brazil, foot traffic, 2-3 million a month. Think all digital billboard, center of the mall, Jambo store, come in, learn about the phone, the ecosystem within the phone, all of our partners, branded pop-ups, different things like that. So I think that is a huge adoption point, and where we're going to be opening a store in Indonesia, in Bali, and Sao Paulo in Brazil, Lagos, Nigeria, Nairobi, Kenya. So this is a lower hanging fruit that we've been really working on. So opening physical storefronts. Second, various other products, right? You look at most hardware companies. I think one of the fastest growing stock market that's been doing well is Xiaomi, right? For those that trade stocks and look at it, its whole ecosystem, right? Xiaomi, Apple, whatever. They don't just sell phones. There's an entire IoT. They have from anywhere from rice cookers, I guess a little too niche, all the way to, maybe even hair dryers to other things. Obviously, that's not Jambo's goal. But in the sense of things, we will have new products and other products. Now, I don't want to comment, whether it's more of an iPad format, if it's a phone format, if it's a wearable watch format. There's super interesting companies, I think, hitting each of these sectors, like Kudis rings, right, and other things. So for us, it's more about creating value for our users. And is that providing internet to already your connected device to then earn more tokens? Or is that to get something new? Is it to pre-order another device? So I think on one end, we really think about the product and then distribution, and then how to make things even more fun with more touch points, which is, I guess, more the offline stores. Conferencing, I think we did a lot more last year. We might not be at as many conferences in terms of like having a booth and all that, just because a lot of our user base isn't at the conferences. A lot of conferences to get your name out there, right, for more crypto native. And because of our TGE and because of what we're doing, we have other avenues of distribution. So please reach out to Jambo anytime, like on Twitter, online. We're very fast and responsive, especially if it's you're a listener in the EM. Like, one of the big surprises I had is whenever I do an AMA, whichever sector we go, like say the other day I was doing one with Solana founders and talking about Solana ecosystem. The other day I was doing one, I think it was around stable coins. But anyways, each time there's an AMA and we open the questions, if I'm using the Jambo Twitter account, there's always a user from some EM that's like, hey, I have a question for James. I'm user Jambo. Appreciate, service, everything. I'm curious when this product might be coming out. When can we off ramp to this, or when can we use this bank, or when can we do that? Like, those are amazing because it means there's actually people that want to reach to you and ask you things about the product, and then are, dependent on you for certain features. So those are big surprises, and we're trying to make a lot of iterations there too.
Right. So you mentioned, you mentioned Xiaomi earlier. That's my main phone. So where do you take inspiration from when it comes to not even just the hardware component, but like, yeah, for Jambo as a whole? Because yeah, you obviously have the hardware component. You're building out the Jambo network now, right? So yeah, you're building out in areas, right, that are not crypto native at all. So like, are you taking inspiration from these, big tech players and how they're kind of handling things, or you're kind of just going your own route? Yes, maybe kind of explain that to me a little bit.
Definitely inspired. I don't know how to put. I don't know if people actually know the story behind Xiaomi and some of these companies that emerged in China. People might just know of Tencent and Alibaba as the largest, but any of these companies, like I'll put it this way: in Africa, say $99 is the JamboPhone, $150 is Oppo Vivo, $160 is Huawei, $170 is Xiaomi, $180 is Samsung. Like every $10 of margin, there is a huge multi-billion-dollar conglomerate company you're dealing with that has endless product teams, endless distribution, endless investors. So the competition is fierce. And for them to be one of the best performing stocks in the last 6 months to a year, wow, they honestly started off more as it's not like it was innovative, like their own idea. It was they just executed super well with certain conditions. Like similar to Binance in 2017, right? They weren't the number one exchange in the world. They didn't start the exchange business. They didn't start anything new that was like, holy shit, this is crazy. Like sort of like how Hype, is doing their whole everything all in one. It wasn't like that. They were the third to fifth largest exchange. But then because of regulations, they took the lead. They went to Canada. They did this and that. And then now they're hands down number one by market share. So similarly for Jambo, I don't see it, parallels in a lot of competition in hardware, just because not as much of people in crypto do hardware. But in terms of reaching users, winning consumers, and that, I think that competition is to be studied, and how you have to pivot and to stay there so that even 10 years later, you're not just relevant, but you're actually owning it and winning because of the info that you started. So I'm a big fan of like Xiaomi and a lot of these companies and how they fought their way to where they are today.
Yeah, definitely heard like some interesting stories from like how like Xiaomi, Huawei, like how those guys were able to get a foothold in like new markets and stuff. Okay, very interesting stuff. So yeah, I think you're definitely right. There's not a whole lot of like parallels between you and other crypto companies per se, right? Like you're kind of the only guy building out in this area, right? And then now looking to capture more value, even like beyond the hardware and the software. Yeah, kind of trying to capture more of the stack. So one of the other things that comes to mind when it comes to like EMs and targeting real users is like these decentralized identity protocols. Like you have Humanity Protocol and Worldcoin, right? So I know Worldcoin or World now has been able to actually get like quite like millions of users around the world, like verified users, and get a foothold in some of these countries like in Argentina and LatAm. So I guess what do you think about those? Like, do you pay attention to these guys at all? Do you think it's interesting? Do you think it can kind of like a rising tide lifts all boats kind of thing? Yeah, just give me your quick thoughts on those guys.
I've personally seen the lines that Worldcoin or World has created when onboarding users with their orb in Kenya and etc. I mean, it's pretty enticing when you say, hey, just come and do this for like 20 seconds to a minute, and then you can earn like a few, like $10, because at the price, the time, I think that was some of the incentives are going. Now, obviously, they were scaling super fast, and anytime you scale very fast, regulations and governments have things against it unless they're also involved. So I think in certain regions, they were growing so fast that they had to stop because of they haven't set certain regulations, and it was new to the country, which is honestly a good thing if you start, experiment fast and break things. We have a partnership coming with World as well, because they actually built out a lot of small super apps, mini apps, sort of like how it is in WeChat for users, that are onboarded to their chain to be able to use. I think is very cool. Humanity Protocol, I haven't spoken to them much, not as familiar, but looks cool, like some Palm to onboarding things. But at the end of the day, DID, what Jambo's doing, like once you onboard users in these regions, it becomes about what you do with them, right? Like it's not like I just want to, hey, give me your passport information, give me your phone number, your address, and I onboard a user, I onboard 100,000 people, I'm dope. Nah, it's like after you get them, after you KYC, say for Jambo, you don't need information like that at the beginning, but maybe when you want to, connect your bank account, or like when crypto goes to fiat or some of this info, you want to make sure you have value provided to these users, beyond just like something very, like you just have to have a lot deeper of an ecosystem provide. Now, I'm not saying Jambo is the best and we're creating an entire ecosystem. You look at all of our products, from the games to the wallets and etc. A lot of our partners' products, we have to find the best and then bring them into the eco. We're not publishing our own IP. It's not like all in one house. It's impossible for anyone to do all of this in the pie. But it's how do you put it all together and to go. I think a good thing I always think about is like in our parents' day and age, right? Information is scarce. It's not the internet age. So whatever info you might have is an edge that you have on other people that you keep to yourself, and that's your edge. But in today's day and age, you can literally, especially after AI, find anything, even help you think, etc. It's just who's better at aggregating info and then finding your tribe and to do bigger things together. And I think that's really what Jambo is about. Where in these regions, we might be working with Humanity Protocol too, with World, like bringing all their users into what we're doing, bringing what our users into their ecosystem. I think that's sort of win-win-win aspects that most people in crypto and founders want to touch.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Definitely look forward to some of these developments. Yeah, you mentioned partnering with World. Yeah, it's great. Some of the most, some of the biggest protocols when it comes to actually like onboarding, real users around the world, not just in like the, typical like developed Asia, North America, Western Europe, the typical places for crypto. But okay, so we're kind of running over the top of the hour now. So I would say, like, just to cap things off, do you see any like additional competition maybe entering this space? Like, this could be like new ventures starting up. This could be maybe like existing players that are not involved with crypto today, but maybe want to expand their offerings to be closer to what you guys at Jambo are doing, right? Well, we're seeing more traditional institutions entering the crypto space, not in the same niche as Jambo, but yeah, kind of give me like your expectations for how the landscape that you're operating in could maybe change, or maybe it won't change at all.
Yes, sir. Well, I think for Web3, for crypto in general, I think there's a lot more legacy companies and just traditional Web2 publicly listed companies that are getting involved, either number one on the product side or number two on treasury side. Product side might be a fintech integrating, Solana Pay and some other aspects into like Shopify, adding crypto payments at checkout, right? These are things that I think are happening and for sure happening. On the other side, I think there will be a lot of MicroStrategies, right? There's going to be an Asian MicroStrategy of Bitcoin. There's going to be a Korean MicroStrategy of Solana. I think by that, I mean a lot of big companies that have treasuries will be adding into crypto as part of their investments and holdings as well, just because of how the mainstream age that we're going to. I know right now it's probably one of the most bearish times. The open coin market cap, the fear and greed index is like at a zero, all fear, but if you look at the actual stats of what is happening and what countries and what companies are doing, look at people's actions more than what they're saying. It's everything pro our industry at the moment. So I'm still very bullish, what time of the cycle we're in, that's obviously not something I can decide. What we can control is a lot of our product and what we're rolling out to our users. So TLDR, super excited. Expectations are high of more and more just companies coming in. On the other side, competition specifically for Jambo or for Web3 companies, maybe even pivoting into hardware, doing that. My question would be, what is competition? Because if there's competition, meaning 10 companies tomorrow say we want to build mobile phones, mobile infra, and be the largest on-chain infra provider around the world, I'd be happy. That means that this idea is 100%, sought after, that people buy into it. They see the addressable market and, hundreds of millions of VC dollars will go into it, which will only speed things up. So I really don't think, any founders, especially I speak with around conferences and crypto, think like, hey, the competition is getting fierce, or, oh, they're doing that. I think there's not enough competition, honestly, where everyone is sort of doing very similar marketing techniques on chain or doing this and that, whether that's airdrop farming to the point system, like everyone's sort of like floats around to these similar, things. So I feel like there's just more divergences and more founders are becoming, I guess that goes with more talent coming into the space. Not saying I'm the most talented, just, we set out to do hardware, that's not the game plan, right? VCs famously invest in software and not hardware because software scales, right? So why would you jump headfirst into that when you used to even do a VC? So I think with time, which markets become more mature, as macro becomes bigger, you'll only see that reflected on the product for retail.
Okay. Yeah, insightful answer. Okay, so not enough competition.
That's the takeaway.
Good attitude to have. That's great. Yeah. Although, it's not Web3, but yeah, you mentioned like you're competing against Oppo, Vivo, like especially in emerging markets, like the smartphone market in EMs, is definitely different than like in the US. So that's already, I think that's already a competition, in and of itself, right? Like before you even just step one, like getting the user to get the phone, you're already competing against like one of the most cutthroat, markets in the world, right? Against those well-capitalized Chinese companies. So, okay, I think this has been a great episode for the listeners. Is there anything you want to leave them with? It can be about Jambo. It can be about anything, actually. But yeah, any parting words?
You're in a casino that's rigged for you. The odds are for you. As long as you survive, you will win. I guess that's what the most smartest founders have told me in the toughest of times. So I'll just, leave the audience with that. Just survive. So I think everyone's doing their best right now in these markets and constantly changing macro conditions.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you for leaving the listeners with some positive advice. Okay. Yeah, I think this has been great. Thank you very much, James. I think our listeners definitely appreciated this episode. Something they don't hear every day, right? Someone building out in not only in emerging markets but also in the hardware space. So yeah, thank you. This has been a pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
You too.
Have a good one.